Welcome. In front of me I have the Nokia T20, and today I'll go over unboxing along with a really quick overview of this tablet. So anyway, let's get started. As you can see, there we go. That's kind of how the packaging looks like. It's not much here, though this device is basically a budget device in terms of a tablet. So let's just pop it open. There we go. You can see, just whip it out. There's nothing in the cardboard part. And in here we got the device itself. And there we go. I'm gonna set it to the side for now. We got some paperwork. Let me mute that so we don't hear it anymore. There we go. Okay, so here we got a nice several booklets of paperwork. I assume it's just instructions in different languages, so I'm just gonna yeet it to the side. Then we got a charger, I believe. Yep, there we go, charger and a cable. Props to Nokia for including a Type-C on their relatively cheap device. I really appreciate the inclusion of just a Type-C port on any kind of device at any price range. So yeah, actually let me just keep that here so we can see what's in here. And okay, so apparently that's basically all we have. I'm just gonna toss these to the side, grab the tablet itself, and let's pop it open. One thing that I'd like to see when it comes down to opening is a foil that either doesn't really stretch much or adhesive that isn't like completely just ripping the thing apart. In this case, it's a little bit meh. Not the most fun experience of unboxing it. But anyway, let's power on the device. And I'll have to mention, on the photos, it looks a little bit more budgety than it does right here in person. It feels much better in hand than it actually looks on a photo. So that is something that I have to give props to. For a device that comes around like 200 euros, this was honestly fairly solid. And we do have a SD tray right over here, power button, speakers on either side, as you can see right here and here, charging port. We had a headphone jack on a really awkward place, just literally on the edge. So that's kind of weird. Anyway, we have volume rockers, and that's about it. Now at the back we have a single camera, which looks like, what is it, like 8 megapixels? Yep, it is actually 8 megapixels. And at the front, right here, we have a 5 megapixel camera. Anyway, let's just go quickly to the setup right here. English is good enough. Let's go. Now, looking at this device, I would say tone your expectations in terms of performance. This isn't any like super powerful device, so don't expect it to run super fast. Gonna skip this. But anyway, let's move over to these specs actually. So we're right now looking at a display that is 10.4 inches big. It's a 1200 by 2000 pixels. So it is actually fairly dense display, and it does look really nice and sharp, I have to say. The camera doesn't really give it that much of a just kind of like effect that I see right here while looking at it, which is a little bit of a shame because the display actually, for the price that this costs, looks really good. I wasn't expecting the display to look this, well, sharp, I would say. And the color wise, it is a little bit on the more toned down side, which you can probably see that the colors aren't literally like almost glowing out of this display, which is in my opinion just fine. A lot of the phones, as an example, do basically have their, vivid mode enabled, which makes the colors look way more vibrant, and at a first glance it looks nice, but when compared to like some actual like things that how it should look like and how it looks like on the display, usually those are way too oversaturated and they just don't look natural. So I do prefer the a little bit more toned down version that is right here. But anyway, let's keep on moving. Now the peak brightness right here, or maybe not peak, but typical brightness apparently is about 400 nits, so it's not necessarily anything great. Right now the display is max brightness, and it is right now in, well, let's just call it a studio where I'm recording this. I have a couple lights enabled. This is probably also what you would typically see just in a normal room where you have decent lighting, and the display is clearly visible, but if you would go outside and some direct sunlight, this might be a little bit harder to see. So in this department, it will struggle a little bit. Now moving on, we have a 78.9 screen to body ratio percentage, and we have 224 pixels per inch. Though to be fair, tablet display looks fine, and it is fairly sharp at a normal viewing distance, so I wouldn't really care to have like 4K on this. If you have some kind of device that is running 4K, you probably won't see much of a difference between this, unless it's a 32-inch display or something like that. And then yeah, sure, you will see this difference between like basically a 1080p and 4K, because it's actually, this isn't really a 1080p, this is a little bit above 1080. So yeah, anyway, like I mentioned, just kind of going over the display, it is a good display. Now moving on to the rest of the specs, we are looking at, like I mentioned, the cameras, 8 megapixels at the back, 5 megapixels at the front, and that's basically it with the cameras. We have a 32 gigabyte built-in storage. There's two variants, 32 or 64. And depending on which one you go, you will have either 3 gigs of RAM or 4 gigs of RAM. And in terms of this device, we are looking at, I have no idea what we're looking at, so let me quickly check. Where did they hide the info? No, I'm just gonna go into the settings. It should be somewhere in here. Let's go storage, 17 use. So this is a 64, so it will have 4 gigs of RAM. So honestly, if you're planning to buy this device, I would recommend going for the higher spec with the 4 gigs of RAM. 3 gigs is a little bit on the low side and might just chug a bit later on, especially when you start using some kind of more demanding applications. So I do recommend you to go with the higher model. It will cost you a little bit more, but RAM is one of those things that you cannot upgrade it even when you start running out of it, unlike storage. So go for the higher one. It might save you later on some hassle and just annoyance. Now, going over the rest of the specs, we have a Unisec T610 processor. I actually don't know how well this processor runs. I will be completely honest. I haven't actually had any device with it before, so this is the first one. And we're looking at a quite significant battery in here. So we have 8,200 milliamp hour battery. Though the charger that we get right here looks like it's what, 10 watts? Yes, yep, 10 watts. So in terms of charging speeds, this won't be necessarily the fastest, though technically the device should be able to charge at 15 watts. But like I'm saying, charger is only 10. So if you have a better charger, that's great. You can use that to charge the tablet a little bit faster. If you don't, then you're stuck at 10 watts charging speed. And for this huge battery, it might take you a little bit of time. But yeah, other than that, there is not much more I can say about this device. It is catering to more closer towards the budget devices, and at this spec and price, I do have to say it's a decent tablet. Obviously, if you have more money, probably going for a little bit better device would be more beneficial. Dropping a little bit more for just something that has a better processor. From setting up and just kind of looking how this display runs, and let's see, right here runs fine, but yeah, once you start loading it up with applications, it might start to perform a little bit worse. So I personally probably would like to go with something that feels a little bit better. I can just see it based on the frame rates that I'm getting on the display itself, that the processor is not the greatest one when it comes down to performance. Obviously, like I mentioned, this is more of a budget device, so the processor does reflect that. but that is also the reason why I'd prefer to spend a little bit more and have a better experience and have more of a certainty that once I load up a bunch of applications onto this, it won't start like completely just chugging like crazy on me, because I do like the devices that do perform just normally, no matter what you load up to them and no matter what applications you open up. I don't care for gaming that much, but when the device is kind of running a little bit sluggishly just throughout the UI of Android, that's where I have a little bit of a concern. Obviously, for just a bare minimum like web browsing, maybe some YouTube watching, Netflix, this will do the job. It's not like it needs much to do it. But for any more like multitasking purposes and just trying to do a little bit more on the tablet, I would personally prefer to have a faster device than this. For everybody else that is looking for just a device that is at a budget range that can do just the bare minimum, this obviously will fill that gap, and yeah, the price to what you get is quite nice. So that being said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.